So now that we have our surface, we're going to go ahead and give this some depth so that it, turn it into an actual wall. And then we're also going to begin to carve out some openings like, for a door, for a window. And then I want to touch on how to create a window in a curved wall like this. Okay. So I'm going to select this block here and I'm just going to hide it because I want to be able to see inside fairly easily. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is give this surface some depth, so about 6 inches. So for that, I'm going to type in extrude surface, SRF, hit enter, and then I'll go ahead and select the surface that I want. So it'll be this one, this one. And while I'm at it, let's go ahead and do these two as well. Okay, so I'll hit enter. Sorry, I take that back. It's not extrude, it's offset surface. If you saw right now, extrude will extrude it kind of up and down, and you'll notice that that's not really what we wanted. What I want is offset surface. So I'll select that surface, and this surface. Okay. We'll hit enter, and then we get these arrows, and these arrows represent which direction the surface is going to offset towards. So in this case, this surface here is going to offset inward, while these surfaces out here are going to offset outward. And that's going to cause a problem, right? Because it means that this wall is going to go in while these walls or this surface is going to go out. So in order to flip the direction, all we have to do is click on the surface. And then when you click on the surface, you'll see that the arrows are pointing inward. Okay, so I'm going to want everything to offset inward. And then I'll come up here at the top where it says distance, and right now it's set to 1, which is equal to 1 feet. So I'll go ahead and click there. And I'm going to say I want to offset 6 inches. I'll hit enter. Okay, so now my distance is set to 0.5. So it says select objects to flip directions, which we've done. We've already entered our distance. Press enter when done. So I'll go ahead and hit enter. And now we have some depth to our wall. Okay, so now that surface is now an actual wall surface. As we look around, you'll notice that this guy right there is a bit off. And I'm not sure, I'm not quite sure exactly why that happens, if it's a graphic design, if it's a graphic card issue. But you'll notice that from this angle, we have a surface in the background. But when I move above, the surface is on the bottom side, right? And there's no surface on the back. So like it's a weird thing that kind of happens. Now, part of that has to do with the way that the surface was created. So if I pull this out, I'm going to click and move this out 25 feet. Okay. You'll notice something really interesting here, where right here, you'll notice that the surface kind of flipped on itself, right? And that's because it had all these points, and when you did the offset inward, some points went in kind of in that direction, while other points went in the opposite direction. So it's just kind of flipped on itself. So what we could do is just select it. Let's explode it. And when we explode it, you'll notice that it kind of fixed itself. So I'll go ahead and select the whole thing again. I'll use Boolean union. And there you have it. So now I can go ahead and move it back negative 25 feet. And it's moved in place, right? So now we have the actual surface, and we have all the surfaces that we need. So the first thing I want to do is create an opening right inside here, and this will be a door. So to do the door, I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to go vertically. And we're just going to start at the corner here. Oh, I need my endpoints. Go near, intersect, mid. So I'm going to start at this corner here. I'm going to go 3 feet out, enter. I'll click, and then I'm going to go up 7 feet. Click. And there's my rectangle. Now I don't want it exactly flush to this wall. I'm going to want to move it to the right, maybe about 4 inches. So let's go and click there. Just type 4 inches. Oops, had to go in the opposite direction. So let's go. Well, now we have to go negative 8 inches. There we go. I'm not sure, I can just type in the distance and check the distance, 4 inches. So now I'll take this, I'll use my extrude curve command, make sure that solid is set to yes. And I'm just gonna kind of extrude it out just to create the block. And move this out just a little bit so that it's actually kind of cutting through the entire wall. And then I'll use the Boolean difference command. And I'll click this wall, hit enter, and click there. And there we have it. We now have an opening. I can go ahead and I'm not sure if I want to delete. Yeah, I'm not sure I want to actually delete this line yet. But I do want to delete the rectangle. So we'll hit delete right there. Okay, so we have our door open. We have our walls thickness. Now the bigger challenge is to create an opening for our window. Okay, so the question is like, how am I going to create a window when the wall is curved? Now there's a lot of examples of this where we could actually create curvature with windows. If you look at a lot of skyscraper buildings, or if you look at more kind of contemporary designs, you'll see that we could actually curve, we could create a grid system, a mullion system where it appears like it's being curved. Now each glass panel is still straight, although we technically can also curve glass. There are examples of that as well. But most kind of curvature with glass systems is that the glass is still straight, like it's still a surface panel, a rectangular surface panel. It's just faceted in the way that the mullions kind of the mullion system is kind of created to create that curvature. And so that's what we're going to try to create here. So the first thing I need to do is figure out my opening and where do I want to place the opening. So I'm thinking somewhere right here. And what I'm going to do is just create a rectangle. It's going to be out, and I'm going to say the width of this is going to be, let's call it 8 feet. Enter. Now the depth, I don't really care. I do need to make sure that it's going to go all the way through the wall. So I'm just going to click randomly there. And then I'm going to extrude curve. Solid equals yet. Let's go up 5 feet. So this window is going to be an 8 foot by 5 foot window. Okay. So now I'm going to move it into place. I could grab it right here and just kind of move it to get it started. For something like this, I'm probably going to want to look at my other views. Let's kind of bring this up. So there's my rectangle. I'm going to orient this kind of so that it's somewhat perpendicular to the surface. Okay. And then I probably want to move this up. So let's go ahead and move this up 18 inches. There we go. And let's take a look. All right. Now it's important that the entire object is piercing through our wall. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for right now is, is it going to does it go all the way through? And if it doesn't, then I am going to have to move it farther in. Okay. This is also an opportunity where I could take a look and see, okay, is that really where I want it to be? Do I want to rotate it a little bit more? So, things like that. I think I'm going to probably move it back. But once you're happy with it, which I am, then what we're going to do is use the Boolean split command. Now, we haven't used the split command before. So if I click on this little triangle, we have the Boolean union and the Boolean difference. We have Boolean intersection, which is going to delete everything around, right, the two objects, except it's going to leave the portion that is intersecting the two objects. But what I want is split because I don't want anything to be deleted. So I'm going to click split. It's going to ask me select surfaces or polysurfaces to split. So I'll select this. I'll hit enter, and then I'll go ahead and click on the box and I'll hit enter. Okay. Now, again, nothing got deleted. Everything just got split. So now I could select this box and delete that. And there you can see that I have my actual window surface or the space where the two intersected. So I'm going to pull this out and pull it out 25 feet. All right, the reason why I'm pulling it out 25 feet, or I like to set a distance so that I can make whatever changes and I could isolate it and work on it while I need to. And then when I'm done, I can just move it back in place. So if I wanted to, I could just negative 25 feet. And I know it's right back where it needs to be, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, what I need to do is recreate this top surface, okay? So when I select this, I could go ahead and explode it. Now, technically, I have this surface here, okay? I can delete everything else in the background and be left with just this surface. However, this surface still has a lot of information based off of this piece and based off of this. In other words, this portion is still in relationship and has a lot of background information based off of this entire surface. And what we're going to need to do is create a whole new window grid system right in this area that we're going to go based off of this surface. And in order to do that, this surface cannot have prior information, right? We need to kind of recreate the surface with with kind of like a brand new slate of information. So what we're going to do instead of deleting everything, which you can do, but what we're going to do instead is we are going to duplicate the border, okay? I'm not sure if we've covered duplicate commands yet, so let's type in dupe. You'll see here that there's dupe border and there's dupe edge. We could also do dupe face border and layer, right? Dupe border and edge are the most common ones. So dupe border means I can duplicate the border of the surface, which is all of these four lines, while dupe edge means I can duplicate the edge of the surface. You know, I could select which edges to duplicate. In this case, I want all of the edges. So I'll do dupe border, I'll select the surface and I'll hit enter. Okay, and now it's given me the edges. I'm going to go ahead and move this 10 feet. And there you have the borders, right? The line work. So I can go ahead and delete all of this now. Okay, but you'll notice here that these points still have some information. So I'm going to explode. So now each line is its own individual segment. And now we could go ahead and recreate the whole surface. So I'm going to come up here to my surface tools. And this command here, surface from network of curves. This is the one we want. Okay, so I'll go ahead and click all of my curves and hit enter. Okay, and then I'll just hit OK. I'll leave, you know, we could adjust the positions if we want it loose or not. This is very similar to the loft command. If you remember, there's like normal, loose, those settings. This is very similar to that, but I'm just going to leave it as position and leave this information the same. So I'll hit OK. And now we have an actual surface, okay, with its own kind of background information. It's a brand new surface. Now I could go ahead and move this back. So we started off with 25 feet, and then we went another 10 feet. So I'm going to go back 35 feet. And there we go. There we have it. Okay. I don't need, at least I don't think I need the line work anymore. Let's just leave it just in case. Just in case we do need it. I don't think we will, but just in case, I definitely know we don't need that. So let's clean that up. Okay. So now we have a new surface. Okay. And this is the surface that's going to be our glass. Okay. And this surface is different than this surface there. The next part of this requires us to use our paneling tools. Now, here's the thing with paneling tools is that they already come embedded and installed on the Mac version. They do not come embedded and installed on the PC version. However, we can install it on the PC version without any problems, and it gives us an actual toolbar. On the Mac side, though, unfortunately, there is no toolbar for the paneling tools. So you're going to have to type in the commands individually if you're using Rhino on a Mac. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm hoping, I should have tested this out. I'm going to go to the help right over here so that as we're clicking on commands, hopefully the command pops up over here on the right for the Mac users who want to figure out like, okay, well, what's the command that Javier just said? It'll already be here on the left. Okay. But for the PCs, so if you're on a Mac, you can kind of fast forward through this next step because you don't need to install anything. If you're on a PC, then what you're going to do is come up here to the command line and type in package manager. Okay. Rhino has a lot of additional commands and a lot of additional kind of tools that are not embedded into the initial installation. Just because if they added everything in, then it's an exponentially higher file size that's going to take up on your computer. So instead of giving you everything, Rhino is just giving you the essentials and then giving you access to all of the tools or all of the additional commands through the package manager. So if you ever want to, you could just kind of scroll down here and you could actually Google, what does each of these plugins do? A big common one is Grasshopper that you could find in here as well. Well, whatever, I'm not going to go through it. Anyways, so we are going to type in paneling tools. Okay. And we're going to get two options, paneling tool scripts and paneling tools. We just want paneling tools. So I'm going to go ahead and click on paneling tools and I'm going to hit install and then just hit install. Okay, give it a minute. Oh, great, I need to restart. So let's hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording for a minute so that we don't have to do this. Okay, so I just restarted the computer. We're good to go. And now you'll also see that we have the paneling tools toolbar up at the top. Now, before we actually start using the paneling tools, we first have to create a regular kind of panel. Okay, so something that a panel that we're going to kind of array within this surface. The panel that we're going to create is essentially a glass with a frame in it. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm just going to quickly create a 2 foot by 2 foot square. I'll go ahead and offset this. Yeah, let's go 3/4 of an inch. Now go in and then select this and we'll extrude curve. Make sure solid set to yes, and we'll go 1 inch. And then I'll use that interior rectangle that we've already had, and I'm going to extrude that. Let's go up 3/8 of an inch. Okay. And this is going to be the glass. So this is the frame and that's the glass. So I need to move that to the center. Let's go into ghosted view here. And I'm going to use the move command and grab the glass at the midpoint and then just kind of move this up to the midpoint of the frame. All right, so now this glass is in the middle of the actual frame. The other thing too that I can do, I could do this afterwards, but let's actually just do it now. Let's put it in the correct layer. So I'm going to create 2 layers. You might already have this. One is frame and one is glass. And let's go ahead and change the color. Fine. There we go. So I'll select this, change object layer, select this, put this in my frame layer. Let's make sure that we're working in the default layer. Okay, so now I have these two, and now I'll go ahead and group. And there we have it. Okay. All right, I'm still in X-ray. I could go ahead and change this to shaded. Okay. Let's go make sure we're in help. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go up to my paneling tools, create panel grid, and then go down to surface domain number. Okay. And then what we're going to do is select the surfaces to divide by. Okay, so we'll select the surfaces, this one here. We'll hit enter. And then I get all of these little dots. Okay, these dots represent think of these dots as the corners of this glass. Now, this is a lot of dots, right? This is a lot of little dots. There is an upside to this because this is curved. So the more individual segments you have, the better the grid can handle a curvature, right? But it's still more than what I want. So let's bring this down to, say, 5. And what happens if this, let's keep it a square. So 5 by 5. So now you can see this is a 5 by 5 grid. That's okay. It's still a little small for me. So let's go 4 by 4. And I'm hitting enter. Okay, that's better. I might actually like a 3 by 3, but let's leave it as a 4 by 4. Okay. So now that we have that, now that we're content with the actual grid, then I'll go ahead and hit enter. Okay. And now we have the points for our actual grid. So now what I'll do is I'm going to go back up to paneling tools, create panel grid. Oh no, I'm going to go paneling from grid. And I'm going to select Orient 2D 3D model or module to grid. Okay. By the way, here's the commands. If you didn't see it the first time, for my Mac users. Okay, so right now it's saying select module object. So I'll go ahead and select this. Press enter. Pick module origin point. So I'm going to pick this bottom corner. This will be the origin point. So pick module X direction, which is going to be here. Pick module Y direction, which is right over here. And then select fourth reference point. And this could be kind of any point, but I'm going to select the diagonal, okay, because it's all on the same plane. Okay. So now that we have our points, now it's asking me to select the grid, and I'm going to select these points, and then I'll hit enter. Select base surface right there, and there we have it. Okay. Now we have our actual kind of grid molding system that follows the curvature. Pretty cool. Now we could kind of leave it at this if we wanted to, right? This is what it kind of looks like on the inside. We still have the surface, by the way. So now that we're done with this, we could actually delete the surface. And this is what we have. Now, a couple things though. Okay. A couple things that we have to live with, really, because I'm not sure we can really change or adjust too much. I mentioned that the more points you have, the better it could handle the curve, right? And what I mean by that is, this one's not too bad, but you could see how this straight frame is having a hard time dealing with the curvature of the wall, more specifically this one, to the point where I could actually see right through it. Now, if this was a BIM model or if we were actually to use this for actual construction, this is a big problem because water is going to be able to get in there. However, we're not using Rhino as a BIM model. Rhino is really used for conceptual design or just kind of design in general. So we don't really have to worry too much about it fully functioning. Now, if we were to take this into doing construction drawings from this, then what we would do is we would cut a section through it and we would adjust the discrepancy in that curvature in the 2D drawing, right? We do a make 2D, and then we just kind of adjust the line work as needed to show how it would actually be installed. The other thing, though, too, is that you might not want the frame to be sticking out because that does kind of look a bit odd. So what you can do with that is kind of wiggle it back. Remember, our wall is 6 inches, so we could kind of wiggle it back. So what I'll do is I'll move this up 1 inch, then I'll move it to the left another inch. What happened here? Let me undo that. That didn't seem right. So here we moved it. Let's move it back 1 inch. And it seems like I have to move it the opposite direction here. Let's go negative 1 inch. You see how we're just moving it little by little, but it's starting to kind of go inside the actual wall? That's kind of what we want. However, it's not going to fit perfectly, okay? It's not going to fit perfectly, and as you can see, there's parts that are of the frame that's inside the wall. There's parts of the frame that are sticking up and out. So like maybe if we take this, you know, we could maybe move it just a little bit, right? So you wiggle it as kind of needed, but understand it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay as well, okay? We can actually select the grid points, these points, and delete them so that they're not in the way, okay? Let's go ahead. Now at this point, I was right, we don't need that. At this point, I don't need the, oh, good thing I did that. So here's the one thing, is that our original frame does get added as part of this group. So what I'm going to do is select the whole thing, ungroup, deselect, oops, deselect everything down here, and then group again, okay? So that's so that this stays as a group, and now I can go ahead and delete this. Let's go ahead and unhide. Oh no, sorry, show. And there we have it. Now we have our grid wall glass. If we go into, sorry, if we haven't actually added a glass material, but we could go ahead and add a glass material to the glass. And we also have our opening over here on the left, okay? And we're pretty much done. Now the next step is going to be to add the interior walls and just kind of wrap this up to kind of make it a complete space, all right? Good luck, everyone.